guys like my new background. It's probably not permanent, but if I'm honest, I was just too lazy to clean off the table. Hi everybody, my name is Rosalie, and welcome back to my channel, back to Chubby. As if you can't tell, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather because my allergies are just going insane. I'm also sorry if today's video is going up a little bit late. I was trying to record over the weekend and I just was not having much luck. Usually I just record on my iPhone, but my tripod got knocked over and the little bracket that holds it broke. I just waited for my new bracket to get here, so it's a little bit later than it usually is for me. Anyway, there's only one thing I really want to talk about before we go to the meal prep, and that is snacks. Well, the meal plan is a set amount, like what I have planned out for the day is a set amount. If I feel hungry or something, I'm not gonna starve myself, like I'm not gonna deny myself. For one thing, I feel that you need to learn to listen to your body, and if your body tells you you need something more to eat, you need something more to eat. Now, that's in moderation though. That doesn't mean I feel a little bit hungry, so I'm gonna drink everything. Like when you feel those hunger twinges, go ahead and drink some more water first, wait a little bit. See if it's something you're just craving, or if it's something, if you're really hungry. Try and figure out if it's because of some emotional response, because if you're like me, I eat in response to things, whether I'm happy or sad. Like if I've just had a really stressful day, sometimes I want to eat, and that's a normal human response. But just take some time and like listen to yourself and your body and decide if you're really hungry or if this is a response to something else. If you do decide you're really hungry, you want to try and avoid binge eating. Now there's a difference between going off of your meal plan or having a little something extra, maybe a cheat here and there, and binging. I have been a binge eater, and I guess you could say I still am. Like I haven't binged in, I don't know, a couple months, but I really think that food addiction is kind of like any other addiction. Once you're an addict, you're an addict. You can control the addiction, but that doesn't mean that you stopped being addicted. Does that make sense? So binge eating is when you feel you just can't stop. Like you feel like you need to eat everything around you, and like it's almost like once you have a bite, you feel more hungry and you need more and more. It's a big ball of suck is what it is. I think for me, the way to avoid binging is like when I get a craving or something, I listen to it, I acknowledge it. If it won't go away, then I don't want to say I give in, but I compromise with it, I guess you could say. So I'm going to talk to you real quick about a few of the snacks that I keep around. I try and not keep very many snacks around because if I actually have to leave the house to get something else to eat, then I'm less likely to do it. One of the first things I'd suggest you keep around is like almonds or walnuts or some kind of high protein nut, but you want to make sure that you don't get the kind that are really heavily salted because it's going to add a lot of sodium to your diet. You also want to make sure that you're familiar with the portion sizes of those because they are not very high. They do give you some fiber, some protein, but if you're really hungry, they probably aren't going to satisfy that hunger that you're feeling. Another thing that we keep around is raisins, and you want to be kind of careful with raisins because sometimes they can have a lot of sugar added to them. Sometimes you can also find them with salt on them, so you want to be careful about it. This little box has 17 grams of sugar in it, so be careful. I also keep some extra fruit around the house. Usually it just works out that whatever I bought for my meal prep the week before, I have extras of, usually because Josh didn't eat it. But so I'll just keep like apples and oranges, things like that around the house. If you're someone who mindlessly eats, like you sit there and you just keep putting things in your face, another piece of fruit that you might consider is a pomegranate, because you actually have to like work to get the seeds out and it takes like an hour to go through the whole thing, and it gives you something to fidget with. I also have just a couple Greek yogurts on hand. Again, these are mostly left over from when I meal prepped a while ago. I don't usually actively buy them because they're kind of expensive. You can also keep extra vegetables around the house, and if you're wanting something a little bit warmer, I have this head of cabbage, and essentially all you do is cut it up into like wedges, Brush just a tiny bit of olive oil on it and sprinkle some herbs on it like Mrs. Dash or something and bake it in the oven for a little bit. And so it's like roasted cabbage and it's pretty good. Another thing that you can cook up really easily is chickpeas or garbanzo beans. Basically, you drain them, you rinse them really well so you make sure that there's not any extra sodium on them. Again, just sprinkle them with a little bit of seasoning and roast them for a while, and they're pretty good, like fresh from the oven. If you want something really sweet, like you crave chocolate, I don't usually crave chocolate, and I don't like milk chocolate. I'm not a big sweets person. You might not be able to tell by looking at me. When I get a craving though, it's kind of hard to get rid of. So one thing that I would recommend is if you like chocolate, that you don't get milk chocolate, but get like dark chocolate instead. The higher the count, or cocoa, I don't know how you say it, the better it is for you. So you can have one of these bars, and I get this kind from Aldi's, partially because it's only like $2 for this thing, and partially because it comes pre-portioned with these little bars. Like one of these little bars has 7 grams of sugar in it, which might sound like a little bit, but that is lower than any of these 3. So keep that in mind. Also, dark chocolate's pretty good for your heart and your blood pressure. If you feel like you need a little bit more protein, especially if you're going more plant-based, the garbanzo beans are a good choice because they have some protein in them, and so does the dark chocolate. But you can also get natural low-sodium peanut butter. And again, with this, the thing that you want to watch is the fat and the sodium usually. So like this natural peanut butter has 16 grams of fat in 2 tablespoons. But if you're doing keto, that's pretty good. And it's only got 3 grams of sugar and 65 milligrams of sodium, but it has 7 grams of protein in a serving, which is about 2 tablespoons. And then finally, the thing that I go to most often when I'm really hungry is popcorn. And I recommend that you don't get the kind that come in boxes, like the pre-portioned stuff, unless you get just actual plain popcorn. But 9 times out of 10, they've added stuff to like make sure it doesn't stick to the inside of the package at minimum. So Josh and I have like just plain popcorn, and the only thing in here is popcorn kernels. There's nothing added to it. And we have a popcorn popper. You can also make it on the stove or something. It takes a little bit more work. But again, if you aren't really hungry, sometimes that extra work can deter you from eating more. The main thing that makes popcorn bad for you is the seasoning and the butter. So this, you could have like 8 cups of popcorn for like 258 calories, I think it is. That is quite a lot of popcorn, and it has a lot of fiber for you, not a lot of calories, virtually no fat, and no sodium except what you add to it. So I want to talk about seasoning real quick because most people don't like just plain popcorn. One of the first things you can get is these little seasoning guys, and they come in different flavors. 1 serving of this has 2 calories, but 1 serving of this also has 65 milligrams of sodium. That doesn't sound like very much, but 1 serving of this is a 1/4 teaspoon. And if you aren't familiar with how big that is, it's maybe the size of your pinky nail. As long as you're careful with it and you measure it, then you should be fine. Something that has less sodium would be to use actual spices. You could use Mrs. Dash, for example, which doesn't have any sodium or calories, it's just herbs. Sometimes we'll also use like paprika or cayenne pepper to make it a little bit spicy, but you want to be careful with that because if you inhale and the dust is too loose, it'll go right to the back of your throat and you'll feel like you're dying. Another thing is garlic powder, but not garlic salt. That's the big difference. So if you want to add salt to your popcorn, just be careful because sodium is what really gets you there. Generally, what I'm trying to say here is don't starve yourself. Like I said in my second video, I don't recommend that people just drop their calories real steeply real quick. And if you've noticed in my past couple weeks, like if you're following my meal plans, which are on my blog, which I'll link down below, my calories have been raising a little bit each week. And that was after I dropped them down by a little bit each week. So I'm essentially doing a version of something called calorie cycling or calorie shifting and refeeding. So if you don't know what those are and you want me to explain them, then go ahead and leave me a comment down below and I'll talk about exactly why I'm adjusting my calories the way I am. The meal plan this week is around 1,600 calories, and that's still pretty low for someone my size. So in order to avoid binging or feeling hungry. If I am hungry, then I will eat more. 1600 is not like a hard and fast rule. It's more of like a baseline. Anyway, I think that's enough about extra food for right now. So let's go ahead and go to the meal prep. The first thing I'm going to do for breakfast is get my eggs started boiling while I work on the rest. I'm going to cut off the leaves and stems of my strawberries, spread out my Greek yogurt, and then once I pass out my strawberries to all of my different containers, I'm going to drizzle some honey on them. By the time I'm done with this, the eggs should just about be done cooking, so I'll go ahead and pull them off. The first thing I'm going to do is get all my corn and beans rinsed and draining while I work on everything else. You could also just use salsa, but I'm trying to save the sodium and I don't really like cilantro, so I'm just going to cut up some onions and some tomatoes and then set them aside for now. I'm also going to go ahead and cut up my bell pepper now to give my beans more time to drain. And then by the time they're done, I'm going to go ahead and put them in a bowl, add the tomatoes, the onions, and then some low sodium taco seasoning to just give it a little bit of flavor. I'm not going to add any meat, but you could certainly add some chicken or something. And this is going to be the filling for our quesadillas. Then in a well-greased skillet or a cast iron pan, you're going to want to warm up your tortillas and then go ahead and spread the mixture into it along with some cheese. You can either do 2 tortillas with a stuffed sandwich between them, or do 2 tortillas folded in half, which is what I'm going to do here. So just spread your mixture onto half of it and then fold it, press it, and you're done. I'm going to go ahead and get my white beans drained and rinsed and drying off while I go on to cutting up the turkey, kielbasa sausage, and then I'm just going to go ahead and throw everything into my crock pot while I cut up the onions. You could certainly saute all these together, but I didn't see much of a point. So I'm going to go ahead and dump in my beans, some water, some low sodium chicken broth, some oregano, parsley, and some chopped up garlic. And then stir it all together, cover it, and cook it on low in the crock pot for a few hours while I work on the rest. I'm going to chop up some potatoes, drizzle some olive oil on them, sprinkle on some Mrs. Dash, and then stir them up really well. Then I will put them on a foil-lined pan and roast them. I'm also going to store the spinach separate from the rest of the soup, and then when I want to heat it up, I'll go ahead and throw the spinach in, but I don't want it to get too wilty in the meantime. Then I'm also going to have some unsalted grass-fed butter and a piece of bread. For snacks, I'm going to go pretty simple. We're going to have some broccoli, throw it into a baggie, throw some hummus into these little cups, put the lid on, and then throw those into the baggies with the broccoli. And then, since I've been having cravings lately for chocolate, we're going to have pre-portioned chocolate throughout the week. I'm just going to go ahead and take them out of the container. And you're done. Okay, so that's really all there is to it. The really only time-consuming part this week is making the quesadillas, because you have to do them one by one, but I was lucky enough to have Josh help me with that this week, and if you can have someone help you meal prep, I highly recommend it because it makes a huge difference. It makes it go at least twice as fast. I don't know how it'd be mathematically possible, but I almost want to say it goes faster than twice as fast. Leave this video a thumbs up if you found this week's meal prep or snack suggestions helpful, and let me know down in the comments if you have any suggestions or if there's something healthy that you'd recommend, or if you know a way to beat cravings besides just drinking water or eating. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see more meal planning next week. As always, I will put links to all of the meal prep containers I use down in the description, as well as a link to my blog, backtochubby.wordpress.com, where you can find this week's shopping list, meal plan, and nutrition information. As always, thank you guys so much, and I will see you on Friday when I weigh in.